All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right, welcome to the Renegade HPG podcast. This is Travis Gardner, and my guest today is a fan favorite artist in the BattleTech community whose official and unofficial work can be found on both DeviantArt and Patreon under the tag Spooky777. Florian Mellies joins me from Germany this morning / his afternoon to talk about all things BattleTech, including his work in bringing that universe to life for its fans. Florian, thank you for taking the time to talk this morning.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Definitely. So one of my kind of first questions is kind of coming from your home there in Germany and kind of, learning a little bit about kind of the BattleTech community there and how it might be, different or similar to one here in the US. I know in the US, it's kind of like I don't know if French is the right word, but it's definitely kind of up and coming. It's always been there. It's survived, through the years, but it's definitely resurging thanks to the Kickstarter. I'm curious, in terms of in Germany, is it a little bit more prominent? Kind of, does it carry the same character over there? And how do you stay involved?
That's a good question. I think it was always there, but it's niche.
Okay.
Warhammer, for comparison, is way more popular.
Yeah. And how did you first connect with it? Did you connect through tabletop or the novels or video games? I know everybody kind of has a different way of finding BattleTech.
I did some research. I always thought my first contact was the tabletop. But I remembered in around 95, I played the SNES game, Mechwarrior 3050 or something like that.
Yeah.
And that must have been, my first contact. And then a year later, I played the tabletop.
I remember I never connected with the SNES game, but played lots of the Sega Genesis, version back in the day. So that and the novels I think were my primary, before the MechWarrior 2 came out, and then I played a lot of that. So kind of, when did you kind of start drawing big giant robots, and how does that kind of, taken over, in terms of career?
I always liked sci-fi stuff. From very young age. Really, the art approach that came way later. I studied communication design, and after art school, I just looked for franchises I can do stuff for from a fan art perspective, just to get some, what's it called?
Experience.
Exposure,
gotcha.
And I dig through stuff I'm interested in, and BattleTech came up, and I thought, okay, there's a lot of 80s art in there, so they might use some new artists. And I stayed, and now I'm official.
Do you remember what your first kind of BattleTech piece is? That's out there. What's the earliest one that you shared with the community?
That was it's a long time ago. Let me scroll down here. It must have been a very small artwork depicting. There it is. Critical Hit, it's called. It's in my DeviantArt portfolio.
Yeah. I'll pull it up here so people can check it out.
Yeah. It's very basic. I just found some 3D models for a catapult and not the Mad Cat. What's the other one? The Vulture. Yeah, and I used them. My whole process was born there, basically. Taking 3D stuff and using them as reference, painting over, stuff like that.
Yeah. And, in terms of that process, kind of, so, the 3D modeling is coming from other people and you're kind of plugging them in, what kind of software suites are you using? What's kind of, what kind of gets you to that end product? Is it a combination or is it just something that you prefer to work in?
Photoshop for illustration stuff. And I used Blender for 3D. I used Cinema 4D for 3D. The 3D part is, you could basically work with every app out there, like.
Yeah. And then, do you have any projects that, really stand out to you as kind of favorites, or maybe some good stories about, just kind of, the process and getting those out there and sharing them with the community?
I really enjoyed the work on map assets.
Okay.
The buildings and stuff. Some stuff is out there. And the most spectacular stuff is coming. I can't talk about that, unfortunately. And there's a huge painting I just finished. That will pop up soon, I guess.
Fun. Yeah, so you've got a lot of stuff coming up. When I know you're working officially with Catalyst now, in addition to kind of your fan work, when did that kind of connection come about? Had you been doing a little bit of stuff for them all along, or did it just kind of really dive in recently?
I started with CGL in 2015.
Okay.
It's been a couple of years now.
And when did you first start publishing the fan work? Because I think the earliest one I saw was maybe 2012. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Must have been true. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And then, kind of in the resurgence, of BattleTech, and I know I was reading, the Legends source book last night, and I think you did a lot of the skins on the battle mechs on that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. And so, there, what if, have you kind of had to, and working in the official capacity, has there been any notable evolution in terms of your approach or kind of how you're envisioning things to align with kind of that official vision? Or, was it kind of a nice, smooth transition to step from the fan work to that official capacity?
Pretty smooth. I mean, there are always some details you have to, adapt, basically, to keep the whole thing, keep the continuity, basically.
Yeah.
But it was, smooth as it gets, I guess.
Right. And then, there's I guess there's a couple different companies now producing official work between, Mechwarrior Online and then, the HBS BattleTech and then the Catalyst Games BattleTech. I know I've seen your work through Catalyst. Have you had a chance to contribute, to either of those other producers as well? And is that even something that you'd be interested in?
Interested, sure. But, the video game studios are, how can I say that? There are not much freelancers working for them.
Got it.
It's all in studio, basically.
Right.
In the very beginning, I sent stuff out to PGI. Yeah, I did that, but never heard anything from them.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
and it's nice.
It's a bit harder.
And when did Catalyst reach out to you, or did you just submit stuff to them? Because I know they have like a little submission link on their website for people to send it in, and so
I sent something there too, and without an immediate response, and I guess months later they contacted me via email. That was unexpected.
Yeah.
Totally. I was blown away.
Do you remember what piece it was that you sent in?
Oh, I think I just sent my DeviantArt link.
Okay. Got it.
So they could basically see my whole portfolio.
Right.
Yeah, nothing in particular. They were just, great stuff you have there. Do you want to work officially?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there any particular project or art piece that you felt like really kind of, magnified the attention that brought to you? And I say just because I know that, for me, your Blast from the Past, that redo of the classic BattleTech cover with the Warhammer, I got my poster back there. Was kind of what kind of caught my attention for you. Was there any piece like that just kind of you felt really, in the community, really drew a lot more exposure and attention to you?
Definitely that one. All my remakes of old stuff that draw a lot of attention. Besides that, sometimes it's weird. You do like 4 or 5 artworks. One of them is your favorite, but all the other ones get the attention.
Yeah, definitely.
It's weird. That's another thing.
Yeah,
I can't get behind it. It's hard to read the audience.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Well, what are those favorites? What are your favorites of yours that you're particularly proud of?
Ooh, there is this one. I guess it's called. Wait a second. Staging area. It's a lot of tanks and some mechs in the background. One guy working on the tank. That was a lot of work, prepping all the.
Here, let me pull it. I'll pull it up here on our screen, and we can share. And then maybe you can kind of talk through it a little bit with the. All right, staging ground. Let's find it.
Staging area.
Staging area. There it is.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that one was. That was the first time I was really, pleased with my work.
Yeah.
Great atmosphere. Yeah. That was
yeah,
fun.
I've talked to that a lot, and that's the part of the things that what draws me to kind of your work over some of the other ones is that I talked in my other podcast of just there is a lot the quality of the work is really great these days in terms of the mechs, but there's this tendency to kind of drift to just showing just this really cool mech shooting, and not a lot of the atmosphere of what's happening and what's going on, around, in that situation. And I pulled, in my project of trying to revive some of the BattleTech CCG with my customs, and I'm hoping to kind of make those public so people can download and print and enjoy them later. But I just I see so much art, just hundreds and hundreds of different pieces of art while I'm trying to find stuff for the cards, and and it's really cool when I can find one that just is. The mech isn't necessarily the focus of the piece. It's, in the piece, and so, and you can see this here, I enjoy, the mech is kind of there in the background. You can tell it's the BattleTech universe, but there's more going on. And I like, a lot of the pieces I've found, that I've pulled from the Dugrum for some of the classic models, the Shadowhawk, the Griffin. What I love about those pieces, is that they, it's, the mech is kind of the background. It's kind of the perspective is different. And I definitely kind of cling and gravitate towards, artists like yourself that kind of take that different perspective, that it's not just here's a mech, it's firing this and this weapon and enjoy it. So that's good to see.
I mean, the universe is way too interesting to just focus on the mechs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stories to tell in artwork. And I focus on that in the beginning. Unfortunately, there's so far I wasn't asked to do anything in that area officially.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and then we have mech firing, blah blah. That's way more prevalent.
Right.
Official stuff.
Well, I know they've hinted at the fact that combined arms is going to be coming in the future. So hopefully that'll kind of bring some opportunity than to kind of bring in those where the mechs are more background item. So staging ground is a favorite. What are some other favorites that kind of stand out?
The Atlas. Yeah, it's called Atlas. It's just the Atlas face, basically. It's a portrait of a mech. That one really got a lot of feedback from the community. Definitely.
Yeah, is this the one here, the Mechwarrior Online one? Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Oh, it's self-explaining, I guess.
No.
A really underrated one is Drop Command.
Drop Command. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I use this on one of the support cards for my BattleTech CCG customs.
That was a lot of work.
So how long does it take to kind of compose a piece like this? How many hours, how many days is it?
Oh, that was weeks. Really? 2 or 3 weeks, on and off. I can just put so many hours a day into it.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely one of the longer ones.
Yeah. I mean, this is great, and that's just what I'm talking about. It was like if you look close enough, it's BattleTech, but there's different aspects of the universe. I love seeing those.
Exactly.
There's one I'd really love. I can put out the idea of, I would love to see an artist tackle an elemental gearing up, basically getting in the suits of exactly, how they do it, and I envision almost something like at the end of, I think it was like at the end of Halo 4, where they have Master Chief kind of stepping on the platform and putting the armor on, or maybe like a Tony Stark Iron Man. It's like how an artist interprets just exactly how elemental gets their battle.
That's interesting.
That's one to put out there. Very cool.
There is official art depicting an elemental getting into the suit.
Is there?
Yeah, there's one artwork. It's pretty 80s, but I think there's one.
Yeah, and maybe even I can get somebody like Bruins to animate something. Once our economy backs up, gets back up, and I have enough disposable income to commission something like that. That'd be awesome. And just do like a 60-second scene of elemental getting their armor on. That would be awesome. Very cool. So there's one that I've talked about, a kind of almost like a pet peeve that I want to kind of call you out on one of your pieces. I want to kind of get your perspective on it, because you're a culprit. Is the Timberwolf, and so there's a tendency, of course. Let's see. So I love this piece, but there's a tendency with artists to produce Timberwolves that don't exist in universe. And so, I want to pull it. So getting an artist perspective of kind of your motivation for doing that. And so, particularly we talked about, the LRM 15s, and I think it was Bishop Steiner that I was chatting about, using the 15s instead of the 20s, because the 20s do look obnoxiously bulky at times, but yeah, it's funny on the Timberwolf that I think there's only one variant that actually has LRM 15s that I can think of, and but at least probably 60% of the art goes into the 15s instead of the 20s, and then where the weapons load out. So for you, is that something that you kind of rolled with, or was that a conscious decision in terms of just the rule of cool, make it look good and forget about the other 5?
Basically, yes. I did it because in this particular artwork, the model was based on old artwork.
Okay.
And it was a nice model, and I don't want to make any changes to the model, and I just kept it like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I fix such things. For the Legends mechs, I did some variants. And initially, there wasn't planned to show a variant.
Yeah.
It depends on the situation, basically.
I actually have that pulled up too. Let me switch over. Let's talk about one of the mechs and the legends, because I actually was going through a lot of that last night to pull out some art for some custom cards.
It's also very fresh in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. So give me a mech and let's chat about it from Legends. I'll find it real quick. I know, did you do Legend Killer? That was one that had a lot of...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of flair to it. And I think it's the first time we'd ever seen... Yeah, there we go. Mm-hmm. So yeah, tell me about this one. This is a cool interpretation.
Yeah. Also, most of it is basically a copy of the Mechwarrior Online design.
Okay.
I redid the little ghost decal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was a cool project. Any other favorite ones that you did on this project?
The Daishi Prometheus.
Gotcha.
That was interesting because that was initially it was the stock Daishi basically.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I made it the correct variant.
Yep, there we go.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
I added the missing weapons and yeah.
Right. And so, is that something you did? So are you able to do some edits for 3D work, or do you have to usually, just ask someone else to kind of make those modifications for you?
I could build the whole mech if needed.
Okay.
And I did in the past. Sometimes, especially the Dark Age mechs, there are not much 3D reference.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get models from Iron Wind.
Okay.
But those are not ideal for illustrations because 3D details.
Yeah.
It's basically those are made for print and production, so it's a bit harder to work with them.
And now, kind of going back a little bit, talking about kind of the history of art in BattleTech, and you mentioned kind of going back into the old source books, and there's a lot of art that kind of struggles there. But it's also you also imagine Fossa reaching out to an artist and saying, we need 50 sketches, and you've got 2 days to do it. A lot of those is away. But there is a lot of amazing art too, and I'm curious in terms of kind of looking back, is are there any favorites, any that particularly influence kind of your approach to it? I mean, there's so many between Holloway and Lamenstein and Vallejo, in terms of a lot of great stuff out there, and I'm curious kind of what your own perspective in looking back at the kind of those standout classic artists.
They are all great.
Yeah.
If you look at how those stuff was made without our tech, basically, sometimes it's painted physically. That's impressive, especially under pressure and with a deadline. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive.
And do you feel like there's something kind of lost in the translation, between kind of doing it on canvas versus doing it on the computer, and kind of what where do the strengths outweigh kind of that sacrifice? Have you found that, or is there any kind of I guess a nostalgia or envy that you have for the people that are working in that other medium that you just haven't found that you can replicate, through the digital?
I recently tried to get to be a bit more painted in my artwork. So I to a degree, I try to emulate what those guys did back then. It just looks better. I rely so much on 3D that sometimes it shows. It's overly crisp. Yeah, and I try to be a bit more a painter, basically.
Right.
And you can see that in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 fan art artworks I released. There you can see the transition to more paint, basically.
Gotcha.
Sometimes deadlines are very very hard. So if you have to build 2 mechs in 3D and do the artwork in 2 weeks or something like that,
yeah,
hard to be to be a painter and
right.
go really into the details and make it look great. There is one of the novel covers, shell games. There you can see basically, if I had a week more, I could make it better. But you can see it's very 3D. It's you can see it's very crisp. It's very 3D. And I had to work with this blur effect. I'm personally not a fan of it, but I was asked to add something like that to give it a bit more dynamic, basically.
Yeah.
I struggle a bit with dynamic poses or convey speed and motion.
And I did see that you had explored just painting in general. I saw some painted miniatures up there that looked really great.
Yeah. I'm an avid modeler.
Yeah.
And paint stuff.
Yeah, the Orion looks wonderful.
For a long time. Yeah, exactly.
So the skills there, it's just got to be refined and transferred, right, to different mediums.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that looks awesome.
And I was always jack of all trades, master of none. So I play in too many areas, basically. I never had the luxury to concentrate on one skill and just hone it to perfection.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And you had alluded to Project Zump Cup, and I know you can't talk about too much, but is there something in particular that you're excited about, kind of the work that's coming up the pipeline and kind of the projects that you're doing?
At the moment, I'm building a city. I can tell that because Brand mentioned that somewhere. I don't know.
Okay.
Some podcast.
Yeah.
That's incredibly complicated.
Yeah.
The whole process of getting the buildings into the maps. I came up with a pipeline to do that, and I'm.
So is that you're building a cityscape that the mechs are in? Like what specifically are we?
I built individual buildings.
Okay.
Render them from above.
Okay.
And I have a light setup, so we can get basically 6 different light directions. So the shadows are always correct.
Yep.
And the map artist can just pick whatever they need and put it into the maps. And there is a lot of rendering, and then put it into Photoshop and make one PSD, basically, where all the stuff is in there on different layers. And that's crazy. But it was easier for past maps because there wasn't that many buildings. So I could render everything on one big rendering sheet, basically. With the city, we have like, there's supposed to be like 40 or 50 buildings. Yeah, that will be interesting.
Nice.
But it's fun. And
Yeah.
it's going back to showing stuff from the universe. It's not mechs. I think it's time to give a look to buildings and stuff in the background.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't have that. It was always make it generic sci-fi basically.
Yeah, and the universe of BattleTech is so vast with so many different planets and cultures, and who knows how many architectural influences are there. And so it really is an unlimited canvas that you can draw on to kind of explore and do what you want with. And so that's got to be exciting kind of as an artist to be able to approach that. Kind of stepping outside of the official work, is there, in terms of ideas and some fan art or just in personal projects, certainly kind of, go into the cityscape allows you to kind of get away from just the mech shooting aspect. But, what kind of ideas do you have for pieces that you want to kind of compose coming up that, that the community will see in time?
I always wanted to do a very detailed mech lab pick. Something, a mech half disassembled or something like that.
Okay.
And a lot of text swarming around and doing work on that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that old that black and white Archer. When the Archer is getting fixed. Do you remember? Which one I'm talking about?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I've often been like, man, I want a new version of that. That would be awesome. I would be very happy with that.
I touched on that with.
Yes. Yeah.
It's similar, but put it in a real mech hangar. And something like that.
Yeah.
Eventually, I will do that.
Very cool. Well, people listening, definitely connect with Florian on Patreon, and you can kind of get the updates. It's one of the great fun things I like about being Patreon is you kind of get that step-by-step update of kind of the art composition, which I've enjoyed. Especially even kind of going back and kind of seeing things like the blast from the past and kind of how the different stages kind of evolved, with a piece like that.
The progression stuff is always interesting.
Yeah, and I'll kind of throw out an invite, and I've talked to people about to artists I get on if you're ever up for kind of doing a screen record and doing the work of just recording it in the background while you're composing a piece, and you want to send me those files, I'd love to kind of get, just like kind of a time lapse, of a composition up. I know I did it for one of Bruins' work when he was doing a sketch for me, and if I would love to do that for other artists. If you're down for doing all the screen records, I'll kind of edit it together. I think that'd be a fun thing for people to see. They'll enjoy it.
Actually, I have a time lapse of one of my recent artworks. It was Cold Breeze. I can send you the link. It's not listed on YouTube because I just did it for my patrons. Basically.
Right. Okay.
You can take a look on that.
Yeah. If you want, I'll throw the link in the description. So that people want to check it out, or they even better, they can connect with you on Patreon and give you a buck or two a month, and then they can see it, the way it was intended. Yeah. That's good. Awesome. Well, there's I love talking cover art, and we kind of touched on it briefly in the beginning, with the different cover art on a lot of the German novels there. But you mentioned you didn't read a ton, but is there some stuff that you've read that you just kind of would love to tackle and just doing a cover art, or that you've seen and you're like, had a different vision for, if you had approached it, what you would have done, and kind of, maybe describe a little bit of what the alternate approach would be, assuming that you had the idea?
Not really.
No.
I mean, sometimes the Legends cover, for instance, I would have chosen something different. But that's doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
Well,
And yeah, I know the Legends, it's a cool cover, it's a cool piece, but to see it a piece recycled that prominently, it's like if they're recycling pieces, I understand that, but not necessarily on the cover. Like, I feel like if you're recycling things on the cover, that's not the best.
Problematic.
Yeah. Not to say, like, they're doing a lot of, I know, like the new strategic operations and a lot of tactical operations, those are, kind of more homages from the past, but it's hard to say you're doing an homage on Legends of a box set that you produced a year and a half or 2 years ago. But definitely a unique one would be good in that sense.
And maybe a bit on topic, so show some legendary stuff. Yeah. But in the end, I guess it was time restrictions and the variant cover idea, because it is different from the
totally
Game of Armored Combat box.
And I think the Legend was the original one, and I think because that was being produced at the same time, Harmony Gold was trying to etch out a couple more dollars that they had to switch it last minute just to be safe.
That legal stuff.
I dropped a little fun parody I did on the website. People seem to enjoy it, where it was like I overlaid it on the scene from the Astartes, and just kind of give a little visual representation of what happened in the courtroom. It was fun. It was fun distraction to make while I was doing all the cartoons and getting those out for people. But
Astartes. That's we have a team in Germany, basically. We're working on a similar thing for BattleTech.
Is that the Hired Steel?
Guns? Hired Steel, yes. I'm looking forward to see what they come up with.
Definitely. That first episode was fun, and the one of the people on the project had reached out to me, about connecting, and so I'm thinking once we get another episode or two, I'd love to kind of connect with them, and we can do a little behind the scenes like I did with Bruins. That would be super fun to connect with those guys. But anything in the BattleTech universe that is people are able to produce stuff like that, and I know I've been kind of trying to ask questions in the background and figure out exactly where the line is with Tops in terms of what fans can do, what they can't do, how they could raise funds for it. Where's the difference between having a Patreon or maybe running a GoFundMe for it, and kind of what the restrictions are there. But I feel like there's a lot of potential, for the community to kind of fund its own work, if it was allowed. And you see things like Astartes, which clearly fans are producing amazing work out there for different IPs, and I feel like there's people willing to do that in BattleTech. It's just nobody knows what they're allowed to do or who owns the rights, because the rights for BattleTech are all over the place. But it seems to fall with Tops. Tops seems to be kind of the hurdle to get over. For like that. We'll see.
I mean, it's always a gray area, basically. But if you're an artist out there and you want to do something and you need, a couple of dollars to realize that, don't be afraid to do the Patreon thing or something like that. Nobody will rip your head off for that.
Definitely. I know Bruins was nervous about his Patreon for that reason, and I try to encourage him to kind of get that set up. And I know it's like he doesn't promote it, so it doesn't have a ton of people, but it's out there, and it's tough. I'm not one to like to ask people, for things, and so I feel kind of like, oh, support me on Patreon. But I also come from a background as a nonprofit executive, and like big part of that job is asking people for support. Even though I don't like doing it, it's necessary. That at least conditioned me to be like, people don't mind being asked as much as you might think they mind being asked, and a lot of people are happy to give. And I'm very grateful for the people that have supported me on Patreon so far. It's at a point now where it's enough that it covers my expenses at least. So obviously, if it gets, we all desire to be at that Astartes level where I think they think he brings in 20 grand a month. And so basically, more than a full-time job with a team. We can all have pipe dreams for that. But even if it's, I always think, well, just, give me enough that I can justify taking, 2 less days of work a month and just do this. That'd be awesome. But, and the commissions out there, but
it's an incentive. It's not, you're not getting paid in full.
And it is kind of an appreciation and a thank you. So even if someone's, if I get a patron for, I think $3 is the lowest tier that I have, it's like, one, if 100 people are giving $3, that's one thing. But even just the idea that somebody cares enough that they'll kind of click on those buttons to kind of make that gift. It's, we're all working here in our homes, sitting in front of our computer alone, and so it's like you can't undervalue, that reinforcement. Just that, we all need a little pat on the back every once in a while.
Yeah.
The patrons do that for me. I'm sure they kind of do that for you as well. But it's nice out there. But yeah.
Oh, it's pretty important for me. It's it's not much, but it's important.
It helps. Yeah, half the battle is just rallying people to know it's out there and they can give.
Yeah.
But no, it's been good. It was a good idea. But for whoever started that Patreon, excellent.
And I'm very bad at self-promotion.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
And and I learned that stuff. I'm basically communication design. This is for advertising and stuff. I have a background in that, but I can't do it for myself.
Yeah, it is tough. It is weird. I was talking to somebody, and even doing stuff on social media, it seems is uncomfortably self-promoting at times. But I got to tell myself that I don't think people look at it that way. I think people just appreciate it for sharing. Whereas I'm like, and even when I like put out stuff and I'll share work from yourself or other artists in the community. I'm like, because I want to try to get as much exposure to the people that are creating as possible. And one of my pet peeves is when, people share art and they don't share the credit for who it is. And so I try to really go out of my way to kind of, bring the attention and let people know. Any kind of old pieces that you have that you would like to kind of shout out, or maybe kind of walk us through some of the process or give us some insights in there?
See. All the stuff I did for MegaMac.
Oh, I saw some of those. And they were similar to the dropship one that you shared.
This one,
especially.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was another one I threw on one of my custom cards. So
stay small, but that one was interesting because they wanted. Classic mechs, and there are no mechs in this picture, but there's another one.
And for those that aren't aware, what is Mech HQ? Like, where is this? What is the project?
Mech HQ is basically it's just how do you call it? It's a name for Mech Lab. It's all in one basically. That's a 1-to-1 tabletop simulation basically.
Right. Got it.
In programmed in Java. It's great. It's the most impressive Java app I've ever seen.
I keep hearing people talk about it. I haven't pulled up MegaMech. I remember trying it like in 2001 or something, which I don't even know if I'm remembering it wrong and I'm thinking of something else, but I remember doing something that was called MegaMech, and but I'm sure after 20 years it's evolved a bit, but yeah.
They are continually developing, so it take another look. It's great.
Definitely. I'll do that. I'll do that this weekend.
And you can play by yourself against bots.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. That would be helpful.
And that works better than 10 years ago. So
right. Yeah, that might be good for me too. I always say that the video games are a dangerous rabbit hole for me. I try to stay away because I have a very narrow focus when I dive into something, and video games just kind of pull me out of life. And so I've tried to stay away, but I feel like Mega Mech might be something where I could easily be like, oh, I'll play some tabletop, I'll walk away. It's not like a task oriented where there's a campaign that I have to do or.
Yes.
So
and there is no grind, there is no competition. You can just set up the lands versus lands or something like that.
Nice.
Small games.
Yeah, I'll have to pull that up. Yeah, I've gotten a couple tabletop games in over the pandemic time, but only like 2 or 3, with a friend. But excellent. Well, Florian, I appreciate it. This has been a fun talk. I always loved connecting with the artists because, kind of it's one of my favorite ways to connect with the universe other than the novels. It's just kind of, looking at the art and appreciating the art and, the people that are taking the time to contribute both, officially and even more so unofficially, just, out of the passion. It's, I really appreciate it. And, again, for the community, give you a little urge, find Florian on Patreon. It's patreon.com spooky777. Is the tag that you can find Florian. And I know you have DeviantArt, and the DeviantArt is under Spooky777. Where are the other places that people can connect with you to kind of follow your art and kind of see what's going on?
Those two are the main thing, basically. Yeah.
And I know you have an Instagram, but you don't use it. I know you just have a.
I'm basically everywhere. But that's I really use Patreon and DeviantArt.
Awesome. Yeah, well, the DeviantArt has a ton of great stuff. The Patreon even more. Again, I loved when I was able to hop on Patreon and you have the kind of progression work. So it's cool to get that little behind the scenes look at it. So, connect, support Florian there, and I'm definitely looking forward to kind of more of the official stuff, as well as the unofficial stuff coming up. It's definitely kind of the renaissance of BattleTech, as people like to say, and so hopefully there's a ton of work, keep you well fed and well housed, and by doing the things that you love. But yeah, it's been fun. Thanks, Florian.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.